Hello and welcome back to the DFS Premier League show brought to you by VIP-bet.com. I'm your host Kevin DeVries. Joining me as always in that box right over there, my good friend and partner in crime, Rob Langevin. Robert,
Yes, sir.
as you're affectionately known sometimes, I guess.
When I'm in trouble, when I'm totally in trouble, people use their whole name. Yeah.
Right. This week we have some of the bigger teams all on the slate. We have Arsenal, we got Liverpool, we got City, we got Chelsea. Is this another one of those Star Scrubs weeks, or are you thinking we might get a little surprise action out of those West Ham, Stoke, and nope, I guess it's just those two out of some of those sneakier teams.
Well, the thing that's dictating this whole slate, and steer basically the bus driver is what is Man City going to do with their lineup based off of what they did in the Caribou Cup midweek. We saw really good DFS players basically go 120 minutes in that game. Some
Yeah,
played 90, some played 80. So unfortunately, by us giving advice and telling you pick this guy, this guy, and this guy, and we usually flip flop games here. You have City here, so it'd be interesting to see who you're highlighting here. But this is one of those like last minute set it kind of weeks because of the involvement midweek on a lot of these teams.
yeah, the Carabao Cup really causing issues for a whole lot of fantasy owners out there. We'll just jump straight into it. Although not with City, frustratingly, you'll have to wait a second for that. We're going to build suspense to that. But we're going to start off here with Arsenal versus Swansea. For me, my like this week is going to be Aaron Ramsey at 6,100. I think a lot of people are shying away because they feel they don't really know Ramsey's best position in this Arsenal team. And that is valid. He's played in 5 different positions thus far for Arsenal this season, so totally get the hesitancy there. But that to the side, he's averaging over 12 points per game over his last 5 matches. And Swansea, who do typically have a good away defense, are going to be without Martin Olsen, which probably means Kyle Naughton at left back. As a person that supports a club that used to see Kyle Naughton at left back, he's not very good there either. I saw an incredibly sick burn in social media the other day, which was talking about how balanced of a game Kyle Naughton has because he's almost as bad at left back as he is at right back. And that is not a joke. It is not a good situation. Also, looks like Renato Sanchez is going to miss out through injury as well. So there's nobody really to protect that back line either. I just think this is all building the wrong way for Swansea, who also are going to be without Wilfried Boney, who, whether or not you think that was a good transfer or not, at least offered an attacking option, not going to be there either. So it's really just going to be Tammy all on his own, which is why my dislike is going to be every Swansea player. Like I said, Tammy Abraham is talented. He's a good finisher of the ball, but Swansea created the fewest chances in the league this season, and the defense is so weakened by injury that I don't really think they can stand out either. So I just think, unfortunately, as a Spurs fan, unfortunately, I think I have to endorse Arsenal here as a really good option this week for DFS. Don't see where the goals come from for Swansea. Arsenal's defense has been hit or miss this season, but in their good matches, they've been very good. I'm going to go 2-0 to Arsenal.
Yeah, like you said, Swansea has an okay defense when they're on the road. But to me, this looks like how Swansea's going to set up. There's going to be a goalie, 9 guys behind the ball, and Tammy Abraham basically playing sprint the entire game. Because I feel like Arsenal's basically going to try to take control of the ball, dominate possession, and basically progress through that. Ramsey's a great call at 6,100. Alexis Sanchez, given his price, given his involvement in what we've seen, based on what they did last week, unraveling their opponent 5-2.
Everton, yeah.
They scored 5 goals. Yeah, so I mean, you have to like Arsenal in this game against Swansea. I don't think Swansea get a goal in this. I think 2-0 is a good call.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how this one pans out. But again, it's probably going to lean Arsenal's way.
Yeah.
On to you talking West Ham Crystal Palace. This is a really interesting matchup. What I'm really interested in here is the Crystal Palace attack versus the West Ham defense. West Ham bottom 3 in defense. Crystal Palace literally the worst attack. What's going to happen here?
Yeah, when you bring out statistics like that, third worst and worst, you expect there to be goals. But the only problem is that both teams struggle to score goals or find consistency scoring goals because they can't set up through the middle. Unfortunately, Crystal Palace really doesn't have much to bank on from a DFS standpoint. Wilfried Zaha does add the allure of an attacking player, but he's about it. So my dislike this week is Andres Townsend. At 6,400, he kind of looks like a fool's goal. Like basically,
Yeah.
this is basically what Andre Townsend is. If you're looking in your lineup and you left one midfield spot left open and you have $6,400, Andre Townsend looks like a shiny new object because you've basically placed every other piece in your lineup. You probably have a City player, you have an Arsenal player, you have a United player, you have a Chelsea player, and then you're like, well, I have $6,400. I guess Andre Townsend is the best guy. Well, in that theory, sure, Andre Townsend does his best to get you between 8 and 12 points every week because his involvement and his dribbling capabilities allow him to give more points in this format. So he's going to get you some crosses. He's going to do some things. He's going to get fouled, but he's not the dominant player that you want. You want guys who are going to, completely multiply your basically your dollar value that you're investing in. And Andre Townsend is not that kind of player. So going on to my we saw a little glimpse of him last week in the EPL, and he got a full 90. Then we saw him in the midweek, and he looked phenomenal. So at 6,100, I know he's the same price as your Aaron Ramsey, but I'm going to go with Lanzini setting up the middle for West Ham. He's always been a great facilitator of the ball when he's in the right position for West Ham. West Ham now is set up, so he's basically going to be, driving the fantasy train, I guess we'll call it. So at 6,100, he could be, that punt down from the big club midfielders, but he's not gonna break the bank, and he's probably going to give you decent enough returns. If he does get in the score sheet, which we're hoping because both these teams stink defensively, he's probably going to be the beneficiary of probably an assist or maybe even a goal. And it's still even a question if he's actually may take a penalty kick there, because West Ham has really not been monopolizing or been given a penalty kick yet, and he hasn't really seen the pitch enough. So he could be the PK taker there if that situation does arise. I think both teams get on the score sheet because they're both atrocious defensively, but it's not going to be like a runaway 41-40 scoring match. I'll say it's 2-1 West Ham.
Yeah, I think this is going to be profoundly boring. I don't know if it's going to be the team I share this on the show, but after weeks of berating you for your liking of West Ham's defense, I literally do not see how Crystal Palace score here. I mean, aside from just Zaha soloing the whole defense like he did against Chelsea. Sorry, Rob. I just don't know where it's supposed to come from. I'm going to go with a incredibly boring 1-0 for West Ham.
It could happen.
Yeah, who knows?
And just to be clear, my West Ham love only extended to Aaron Questwell from DFS standpoint,
who did not start last week. So interesting to see if he gets his spot back. You wouldn't think that Masuaku would be able to hold on to his spot after the performance he put in. Moving on to Liverpool versus Huddersfield. My like from the jump is going to be Mo Salah. His performance against Tottenham was terrific last week, despite the fact that Tottenham are one of the better defenses of the Premier League. Currently sits top 5 in both goals and shots, which are also obviously scoring categories in DraftKings. He's also up there in shots on target, which I don't believe are. But 18 plus points in 3 of the last 5 matches, which is just absurd. And then he's coming up against a Huddersfield defense that are not as strong as they were to start the season. They put in a very admirable effort against Manchester United last week. I will not stop complimenting Zonka and Huddersfield's signing of him for less than $5 million in a market where everyone needed a center back and very few teams actually got them. He's been fantastic. Just the unit as a whole, I think, is very kind of West Brommy. Like, we'll concede one at least. Sometimes at unfortunate times for them. But Liverpool's attack is obviously just super prolific. I think Salah has a very good chance of undoing them. And what we didn't see from United last week, because of how kind of static their play style is at times, was the counterattack. And if Liverpool lead on the counterattack, it'll probably be Salah leading that line, and he is incredibly dangerous when he does that. His conversion rates aren't actually that good. He's kind of Vardy-like if you were going to compare him to a player out of position. But in that he gets a fair few opportunities, wastes about half of them, but they're all clear-cut chances, so that still ends up being a lot of points. For my dislike in this one, it's going to be James Milner and all the Liverpool defenders. Milner, largely because he lost his job, although he did start last week in midfield, kind of. But Huddersfield get sneaky goals. They aren't up there in chances created. They aren't up there in crosses. But they just kind of keep scoring. A lot of that comes from Aaron Moy, whether he be scoring or assisting. But after seeing what we saw from Liverpool last week with Lovren, honestly, if Lovren misses, they might be better off, which is a very harsh thing to say. especially when their backup is Ragnar Klavan or Joe Gomez, who's supposed to be a right back. But I just don't want any part of this Liverpool defense. They've only kept 2 clean sheets all season. That was the Crystal Palace, who literally don't know how to score goals, and Manchester United, who on that day didn't bother trying to score goals. Both teams willing to just sit back in that one. So I think Huddersfield could easily make their mark here. I'll go 2-1 Liverpool.
Ooh. I think the hardest question for me when looking at this fixture and the players that you want to get in there, yes, you have Mohamed Salah at 9,500, but you also look at Huddersfield and how their propensity to give up free kicks or kicks that are shots on goal, penalties basically that come shots on goal. I believe they're in top 5 in the Premier League of giving fouls near the box to end up with a shot on goal. That just screams Philippe Coutinho in this matchup for me at 9,800. He is a premier set piece taker. I could see him getting 2 or 3 of these in this game. So that's the conundrum here. Everybody wants a piece of this Liverpool attack, especially going against Huddersfield and the Liverpool being at home. The only problem is, piecing it together. So if you trust Coutinho more because of the set pieces, or you trust Salah because of the form and the returns on your investment that he's been giving. Yeah. So that's the biggest question for me. I think Liverpool definitely score in this game. I'm not sure that Huddersfield will. They do struggle. I know they did just put 2 past Man United, and we just saw what they did. So I mean, it's thinking that they could do it again against Liverpool, who has a worse defense, is definitely a possibility. But I think Liverpool is the better team here. I'll even say Huddersfield get one just to squeak one out. So it's 3-1 Liverpool.
Fair enough. In case you're thinking, why aren't we thinking this will be kind of more of a rout? Everybody's talking about how Liverpool's defense is struggling. Worth noting, Liverpool only 6th in goals scored this year. And for a team that's set up to outscore their opponent, not defend them, that's probably not good enough if they want to make the top 4. But enough about real football. We'll get back to fantasy stuff here. Talking about Stoke versus Watford, which may seem boring to you guys, but I think there are a lot of interesting kind of diamonds in the rough here, and one diamond that's on top of the rough. Rob, I assume we're going to be hearing about Brazilian wunderkind, Richarlison.
We will, but in probably in a light that you're not expecting to hear. My light, I love this match. I wish that I could just make a whole team based on this matchup.
Yeah. I
know there won't be enough goals in this game to warrant basically you filling all 9 or 8 positions of your team with Stoke and Watford players. But you need. I think you can't actually do that anyway. I think you have to have a third team involved when you make a team anyway. So don't do it. But there's not enough goals to go around here. But there's a lot of influential people at discounted prices in this game that are going to fit in nicely with your Arsenal, with your City, with your Chelsea, with your Liverpool players. For my like this week, it's Adelaide Doucouré. 3,300 is way cheap. I know Kevin was on his train a couple weeks ago and even a month ago. His returns in the last 3, 15, 4, and 14. Basically doesn't do anything unless he scores. But the one thing I love about him, and I think that there's more to see and more to come from him, is that of all the successful passes that Watford has this season, Doucouré has 17.5% of all successful passes from the Watford team. That is a ginormous number for a player of his capability. So just think about that. He does get involved. He's going to be involved more, and probably pass to my dislike. Kevin is not expecting this because I
was not.
My dislike for this is Richarlison at 7,500. The reason for my dislike is look at his price. He's 7,500 now. 7,500. That is 1,300 more than he was last week, and that was as high as he's ever been. So he's a tidy player. He's the most fouled player in the Premier League with 32 fouls. And yes, that is a point category in DFS. But at 7,500, he's basically gone from that, okay, he's a bargain chip now, I can squeeze him in with a higher priced talent, to basically being above that precipice and now being on the point of, well, now I have to, steal from my defender just to get a Richarlison in, when he doesn't really score enough, but he scores a lot in DFS. So it's an interesting question. That's why I'm disliking him only based on price, because nobody likes a big price jump, especially in players who become like sneaky good player options every week. And Richarlison is that guy. He's basically becoming almost like a must-own in the official game with his price. And in this, now he's basically pricing himself out of a DFS market. This game's going to be a 1-1 draw for me.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be really interesting. On the other side is your other boyfriend, Mama Biram Diouf, who's obviously scored 2 in the last 3 as well. I do like Richarlison this week. You mentioned most fouled. He's also top 5 in shots. Just seems to kind of be the driving force of that team, kind of like Mahrez was when Leicester were promoted. Obviously, Watford not new in the Premier League, but just that kind of sense where the main creator is a wide player instead of somebody that's playing straight up the middle. I do agree with you. 7,500 is expensive, but for all intents and purposes, he's worth it. I think if I can pull it up on this screen real quick, if you do it by fantasy points per game, he is fifth. At 14.5 this season behind Aguero, Salah, Morata, and Sanchez. And he's still at least 2,000 cheaper than those guys. So while I definitely agree with you, it is disconcerting how quickly he's jumped up. Because, we had been talking about him earlier. You mentioned Decore, who I also like from Watford. These are guys that were steals. That's why I kind of alluded to the diamond in the rough thing. But he is now above that rough. Now he is just a diamond. The question is he as good as the other players at 7,500? For me, I'm willing to say yes. Sounds like you want a little more time to decide if he's worth that after, as you said, he was like in the 6,000s last week.
It's just basically comparing what he's going to do and the returns he's going to give you at 7,500 based on a Watford team that probably isn't going to score multiples or may not score more than 2 in this game. True. Where you involve yourself in a Liverpool squad or a City squad or an Arsenal squad who have great matchups and are probably going to score an abundance of goals. Is he worth 1,500 to 2,000 less than the positive investment that someone's going to give you on multiple tallies and multiple returns? That's the whole problem. He's becoming too close to that. Well, he does give a good return, but Watford isn't the best scoring team. I know I think they're in the top 8 in scoring. But the funny thing about Watford is, they have 10 different players that have scored a goal this year. Yeah. With Man City this year, with players who have scored goals. So from a team standpoint, it's spread out. Yes, they don't have the return that City does because City has almost twice as many goals as they do. So, but that's the risk you play in DFS. You see a quality price and you want to be involved in that, and they give you good returns. But you have a positive thing like a Mo Salah or a Coutinho or a Leroy Sané or David Silva, and you basically want to jump up because don't always fall for brand names in this game. That's the hardest part of this game. You basically want to get as many brand names in there, but guess what? No frills taste just as good as you add the same ingredients.
Fair enough. For me, I think Watford kind of walked this. I mean, Stoke's defense has just been atrocious. I'll do 3-1. I'll give Stoke 1 as well. Watford's defense, kind of like what I was talking about earlier with Huddersfield, tend to let in 1, which is always frustrating from a fantasy perspective. The end of my run here, we'll be talking to you guys about West Brom versus Manchester City. My like this week, it surprised me. On Mondays, I sit down and kind of go through a whole bunch of statistics to just kind of see who's sticking out over the last 5 matches or so, and right now it's Leroy Sané in a big way. I know he's 9,200. I know that if you're spending that much, kind of like what Rob was just talking about, you may want to go to Silva, who's cheaper. Obviously, has gotten a lot of assists this season. You may want to go up to Kevin De Bruyne. But as you mentioned earlier, with City's midweek stuff, looks like it's going to be no Sterling and no Aguero. And Sané only played about 30 minutes. I think it was 25 if memory serves, in the Carabao Cup. So I think he's definitely going to start. And you can't argue with his recent results. He has 3 goals and 4 assists in the last 5 matches, which is just bonkers. I mentioned KDB and Silva. I think they'll both be far more heavily owned, which even though Sané has a high price, that may actually benefit you because that could make him a lot less owned. And because of people being worried about rotation issues and stuff like that, I feel like his ownership could be sub 10%, which considering the ownerships that are probably going to be there for De Bruyne and Silva, could really make him a surprising high price differential, which you don't often see too frequently. So yeah, I really love Sané this week against West Brom. My dislikes are Aguero and Sterling because they're not playing. Both of them played 120 minutes midweek. To not give as cowardly an answer for a player that is going to start, I'm going to actually say David Silva is somebody that I don't like this week. I was on Silva pretty early this season and was very proud of that call. But the creation stats are down. The result of that has been no assists in the last 3 matches, which included their 7-goal win against Stoke. He's not really taking on as much of the creative burden, and you can see statistically that shift is heavily moving towards Kevin De Bruyne, who has shot up and is now number 1 in assists and chances created after being nowhere near the top of that list as recently as a month ago. So I love David Silva as a player. I'm glad that we had this brief period of time where we could all look at him and remember that he's one of the best creative players in the Premier League. I just think, unfortunately, His role is kind of shifting away from him a little bit, and he may end up in that more recessed role that we saw from him last year, which basically gave him no fantasy value. I'm not saying definitely get rid of him in season-long formats, but in DFS, there's no need to test that. So I would personally lean towards Sane, De Bruyne, maybe even a cheeky Bernardo if he ended up getting the start on the other wing, with Sterling unlikely to play. Oh, sorry, I forgot to give a result. West Brom can't do anything in attack right now. City have the best attack and the best defense. I'm going to go 3-0 again.
Yeah, this game is going to be out of control, but like I said in the opening, who and what play for City is going to steer the ship on this slate. Kevin said that Sterling and Aguero aren't going to play. Who knows? Pep hates your fantasy team. They could play. That's all I'm saying. And we won't know until the lineups come out, and that's going to be like the complete, subtract. You're going to go over here and hit that red X, and then you're going to go over here and hit the green plus. So that's basically what's going to happen when we get the lineups for this slate. We're basically going to be running around with like a chicken with our heads cut off and trying to figure out pieces to the puzzle that all fit in. But yeah, City's going to walk this. West Brom's got nothing for them. They have something for them. It's just not going to be anything good. Yeah. I 4-0. I'll say 4-0. I'll be hesitant because this game could be a Stoke Part 2 where they do score 7.
It could, but it could also be like last week, where they struggled to get on the score sheet, and then as soon as they did, it was 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
If City score early, though, this game could become a mess because if West Brom are forced to come out of their shell, it is not pretty. We'll wrap up with you talking about your beloved Blues. You're going to be playing Bournemouth, who were a lot of people's darlings last season, have, in a fantasy sense, been trash this season.
They are not anybody's darling right now.
They are not. Not even their parents' darlings right now.
No.
I assume you're looking towards a heavy-handed win for Chelsea here?
Yeah, I like Chelsea in this. Bournemouth can attack only and not defend. Even their defenders only attack. They never defend. Charlie Daniels, that's my dislike. Any Bournemouth defender, Charlie Daniels, Adam Smith, Nathan Ake, Simone Francis, Pope Francis, Francis of Assisi. Anybody you could think of that is playing for Bournemouth defensively, avoid their price tags. It's a sucker bet. I know Charlie Daniels gives you good returns. Don't do it to yourself. There's better options out there that are going to give you a better return than his 4,400. My like this week is Eden Hazard at 8,800. He's played Bournemouth 4 times, 3 times in Bournemouth, and scored 4 times.
Yeah.
It's an interesting stat right there. At 8,800, he's just getting basically back into the 100% form that he showed previously, and I think his DFS numbers are going to correlate that. I love Chelsea in this. They're looking for a big rebound game after losing last week. I think this is it.
Wait, Chelsea won last week. Didn't you come back and win 3-2?
Yeah, I apologize. You know what I'm saying? 4-2. They were 4-2 against Watford. I'm talking about the Crystal Palace game. They're looking for a comeback game against a bad team. I think they're going to take out their frustrations on a bad Bournemouth squad. I'm going to say they're going to kill them. I'll say it's 3-1. I think Chelsea let up a goal though.
Interesting. Yeah, Chelsea not the obvious clean sheet darlings that they were last season, to be sure. Not really sure where the goals are supposed to come from Bournemouth either, though. I say maybe we see a little bit of Conte ball. I'll go, 1-0's too conservative. I'll go 2-0 for Chelsea. You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see Morata get back on the score sheet because I was high on him in the preseason. Was it the first 2 weeks he was like kind of iffy, and then after that he was like, right, Morata, got it. And then unfortunately got hurt. But hopefully he can get back up there. You know what? As much as we complain about how there were too many good forwards to pick from, all of a sudden there are very few forwards that you can trust to pick from. And it'd be nice to have that other issue once again.
Yeah, Morata's going to be definitely underrated, under-owned this week because of the City players. Because of, I think he's probably, Lacazette will be owned more than him. I think the Liverpool, Coutinho, Firmino, Salah trio will probably be owned more than Morata. But yeah. Oh, another interesting thing about this: if you look at the defensive pricing for the entire slate, if you go all the way to the top, look at the top. You see David Zappacosta is the most expensive defender on the slate at 5,800, followed by Andrew Robertson at 5,500. Interesting enough, David Zappacosta has 70 official EPL minutes this year. 70. Yep. 7-0. That's it, and he's the most expensive defender.
I think Robertson has less.
No, he's got more. He's got 180. He actually played 2 full
Really?
games. He's got 180
Huh.
minutes, and those are your 2 most expensive players on this slate for defense.
Incredible. It's just pretty silly and stupid, to be honest. All right,
Yeah.
Rob, we'll come to you to talk about your team that you would like to share this week. We used to say our first team that we made this week, but you know.
Yeah, it's just a team that I went down, and I was just trying to piece it together as we were talking. So there's no real fluidity in it. I'm missing a defender still, but I'm just going to put somebody in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look good. So I'll start up top for forward. I got Mo Salah. I wanted to get some Liverpool investment in there. I paired him up with Eden Hazard at 8,800. Those are basically my bigger ticket items until we get the utility, because that's basically where you should invest all your money, because that's basically the fun spot. Util spot is through midfield. I went cheap. I have Decore at 3,300, and I have the guy that's named after my twin daughters, Mame Biram Doof at 5,400. Love the dude. Gotta love him. I'm riding the pony of the Doof.
Wait, now it's switched. Now he's named after your daughters that don't exist?
Yeah. Well,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, they're more important. It's like a fictitious being, you know? Yeah, so on defense, I have Cesar Azpilicueta at 4,900, and the name I just put in there was Adrian Mariappa at 2,800. The thing I love about Azpilicueta is, look at his price tag at 4,900.
Yeah.
You know, in the real official game, Marcus Alonso is considered a defender. In this, he's not. He's considered a midfielder. But with an 1,100 price difference, Azpilicueta still outscores him by 0.4 points a game. So take the savings, invest in Azpilicueta. He's a stalwart. He's got more assists than any defender, I believe, in the Premier League still. He might be tied with Kyle Walker now. But look at that. 4,900 is a bargain for a Chelsea defender. And utility, I went with the high slinging 10,100 midfielder for Man City. Like Kevin said, his numbers are coming up and jumping over David Silva. So Kevin De Bruyne is my util. I'm expecting big things this week from City, just depending on who hits and who is, the lineup is the most important thing.
Yeah. For my team, I actually kind of didn't go star scrubs, which I fully expected to when I started making it. My 2 forwards, Mo Salah and Richarlison. I mentioned earlier why I'm a fan of Richarlison. Rob's not, so I guess just kind of listen to yourself on this one. My midfield, Leroy Sané, who I touted, along with Abdoulaye Doucouré, who, as you mentioned, I was on pretty early as the new Capu 2.0. In defense, I currently have Nacho Monreal, who has his first 2 goals of the last 2 weeks. But your Azpilicueta shout is a good one, and I have 200 in the bank, so I could upgrade if I wanted to. But I currently have Monreal paired with Petr Cech. I just don't really see a way that Swansea impact this match in any meaningful way. I paired him with Otamendi, who is currently the highest scoring points player in the goal game. And also has, obviously scored a fair few goals this season. City, as I mentioned earlier, already the best defense in the league. And my util is Aaron Ramsey. I have 3 Arsenal players this week.
Wow.
I cannot express.
Who are you?
I don't know. I don't know.
That should be illegal. You should not. No. Go change your team right now. Go put in Azpilicueta right now for a defender.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put in Azpilicueta on air for the folks at home. Here we go. Going over to defenders. Azpilicueta 4,900. Kapow! There it is. Now it's only 2 Arsenal players. Still more than I would usually have, but I cannot stress to you how little I think Swansea will do anything of note in this match. Rob, last week was a little weird. What are we thinking this week for prices? Because last week people were like, yeah, United, and then nothing.
No, nothing. City's going to have the most goals, I believe. Huddersfield defense could tidy up Liverpool. I'm not saying they will completely.
Yeah, agree with you.
Arsenal's going to get some goals. I think Chelsea will have goals, but not as many as we hope or think. I'm going to say 140. 146.45 is the total.
I'm going lower than that. I think a lot of these could be close. I'm going to go in the 120s. I just think there might be some restraint across the board and a whole bunch of attrition, like Crystal Palace versus West Ham. Any stupid random player could score. Similarly with the Stoke-Watford match, as you mentioned, Watford have such a diversity of goal scorers. Not traditional goal scorers, but people that have literally scored goals. That could get a little weird as well. So it may just not. There may be goals this slate, but they may not be the people you expect, which could obviously keep scores down. That will do it for us this week, though. That's Rob. You can find him on Twitter at FPL_MNOP on Twitter. I'm Kevin at Kevroff on Twitter. Be sure to check us out. Best of luck to you, and we'll catch you next time.